Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this extraordinary meeting. Without any further ado, I shall hand you over to the Mayor to get the proceedings going.
I would like to start by welcoming everyone to this virtual extraordinary meeting of the Council. Before we begin, we have been deeply saddened to hear of the death of His Royal Highness the Duke of Edinburgh, and our thoughts and condolences are with the royal family as they mourn their loss. Prince Philip made a tremendous contribution to public life, both as the Queen's consort and through his own tireless work for charities and public engagements over more than 70 years. He leaves an incredible legacy through the Duke of Edinburgh's Award, which equips young people with a range of skills. In line with all public buildings in the UK, we have arranged for the Union flag outside the Civic Centre to be flown at half-mast while the country pays its respects. I'll now ask you to join me in a minute's silence in memory of His Royal Highness. There will be an opportunity for members to speak a few words at the next week's annual meeting. Thank you. For the meeting this evening, members, when you make a speech, the clerk will let you know when you have 1 minute left, and again when your time is up. You will be operating your own microphones. If you wish to speak and your name is not on my list of speakers, please alert the clerk or the chief executive via the chat function. We are managing a large number of members in the Zoom meeting, so please be patient. If you experience any technical difficulties, please alert a member of the Democratic Services via the chat function. Are there any apologies for absence? Councillor Christie?
No apologies, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Barlow?
Apologies from Councillor Andrew Howard, Madam Mayor.
Councillor McGrath?
No apologies.
Councillor Southgate? Councillor Southgate? Well, we'll proceed. Thank you. Are there any declarations of pecuniary interest?
This one is just.
Thank you. We now move to the single item of business for this extraordinary meeting. The motion submitted requested to resolve to reinstate meetings in April and May 2021. I will ask for the motion to be proposed and seconded in the normal way. We will then take any amendments in the order in which they were received. We will then move to the debate, and the usual rules of debate will apply. I will ask each member who has asked to speak on this item in turn. Councillor McLean, please move the motion.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
May I begin by saying that I regret that we are all here tonight having to debate and vote to have the April full council, scrutiny panels and committees reinstated. Council meetings that were cancelled for no legal reason, meetings cancelled by an administration eager to avoid scrutiny. The cancel agenda surely taken too far. Madam Mayor, it did not need to be like this. I raised the Conservative group's objections to the meeting being cancelled via email on the 4th of March, finally receiving a response after several chaser emails on the 23rd of March. I sent an email to all group leaders on the 31st of March outlining the Conservative group's position that should the April full council and scrutiny meetings be reinstated, we would withdraw our request for an extraordinary general meeting of the council. April full council, and I remind members that the strategic theme is safer and stronger communities, the perfect theme for discussing the very serious issues of violence against women and girls, is indeed the appropriate meeting. Madam Mayor, this would have been a perfect opportunity for Councillor Allison to show leadership, accept responsibility for a decision that was wrong, correct it, and move on. But the political reality is the leader of the council is not in a strong position within his group, and he is simply unable to make decisive decisions. So we find ourselves here tonight. Madam Mayor, it is simply unacceptable that an administration should be able to cancel meetings for no legal reason. Let me repeat, the monitoring officer's advice was that there was no legal reason for the meetings not to take place. And yes, some agenda items may have to be removed, but the meetings could be held. The administration's argument of purdah is a bogus one. Otherwise, they would not be tabling an amendment to the Conservative motion tonight to reinstate the scrutiny panels, as welcomed as that is. Madam Mayor, it is quite clear that under Councillor Allison's leadership, the administration and indeed the decision makers have got themselves in a chaotic mess on this issue. I suspect it is not just the Labour group who is starting to appreciate Councillor Alan Brittis just that bit more. Madam Mayor, on the 21st of April, the annual general meeting will now be held. Let's do the right thing and reinstate full council meeting as well and debate fully our safer and stronger communities. And in doing so, show that Merton is a council that values its democracy and scrutiny. Let's stand up for the residents who elect us and show them that we are a council that will not
You have a minute remaining.
by a desperate administration. Madam Mayor, I move this motion.
This is being seconded by Councillor Williams.
Madam Mayor, you chair the meetings of the council. I know that because I've been mayor, and it's implicit in our procedure rules laid out in Part 4A of the council's constitution. At Rule 5.1, it states that the chief executive may vary the time and place for such meetings in exceptional circumstances to ensure the smooth operation of the council. This may only be done at the request of the chair after consultation with the leader of the council and other leaders of other groups. The ability to cancel is not spelled out, but it is also implicit. So, Madam Mayor, you agreed that there were exceptional circumstances to cancel the ordinary council meeting on the 21st of April. But a few days later, in accordance with Rule 3.1c, you decided that the extraordinary meeting of the council called by the Liberal Democrats should be held on the 21st. So what was exceptional about the 21st that had become unexceptional? A request to reinstate the ordinary meeting was not agreed and brings us here tonight, along with the reinstatement amendment of the scrutiny panels and other meetings that were cancelled in a notice on the 15th of March from the head of Democracy and Electoral Services. By implication, it is now accepted that there was no exceptional reason to cancel these scrutiny panels or other meetings either. So what was exceptional? Not according to the monitoring officer, the election purdah rules. Merton has routinely held meetings in the GLA election period. We have a job to do, cabinet and non-executive executive councillors alike. There was no good reason given to cancel overview of the executive for a whole municipal cycle. The administration's amendment tonight accepts there was nothing exceptional. And with regard to the 21st of April, they now want to move the annual council meeting for no reason except their own desire to keep us from meeting in person. So all of this is so unnecessary. If it was about the election period, the revised date of the GLA elections has been known for 12 months. There have been several council meetings where a revised calendar of meetings could have been tabled. Even at our last ordinary meeting on the 3rd of February, when we agreed the calendar of meetings for 2021-22. Instead of holding a vote and exercising transparent power, the executive did not even tell all their group until Andrew Robertson's email came out. It is not an exercise of raw power, but a demonstration of weakness and incompetence. This, though, is a warning to all councillors, irrespective of party, that we cannot allow a similar situation to happen again, ever. The smooth operation of the council does not include the exercise of raw power by any future administration without exceptional reasons to coerce a chief executive to cancel democracy in Merton. I second the motion.
Councillor Allison to move the amendment.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. May I begin by expressing my group's sadness following the death of Prince Philip. Although he reached a great age and had a good life, we are sad to lose one of the last representatives of an era in which duty and service were paramount. When I think of him, I think of my grandparents' generation who also fought in the war for freedom and democracy, and of the sacrifices they made, and wish to express my group's sincere condolences to his family and all who are mourning him. So now is not the time for Yahoo politics. We want to settle this issue tonight calmly, without posturing. We are, of course, in a period of mourning, but we're also in a period in which the council's resources, paid for by taxpayers, should not be used to promote political parties or our campaigns. Our amendment tonight reasserts that principle. During a pre-election period, we should not, ordinarily, hold meetings where one party or another can exploit public resources for political advantage. However, our amendment also notes that for one good reason, this is not an ordinary year. Due to COVID-19 and the need to ensure the safety of our councillors and staff, meetings in person must be avoided. However, unfortunately, due to the government allowing rules enabling us to meet online to lapse from 7th of May, we will only be able to meet in person. We therefore face a choice between having unsafe meetings or no meetings between now and the all clear, or of moving them to before the 7th of May. We believe the right thing to do is to move meetings. Before the government announced the rules would lapse, we had wanted to follow ordinary practice, postponing meetings until after the election, not to cancel those meetings, only to push them back to avoid unscrupulous colleagues exploiting them for electoral gain. Now, due to these extraordinary circumstances, we're content for meetings to take place earlier as a one-off. However, we implore members not to take advantage promoting their candidates at public expense. Next week, we can rise above politics at our annual council meeting to elect a new mayor, who I hope will be Councillor Brunt, and also to mark in sombre fashion, without political partisanship, the terrible death of Sarah Everard. The decision to stop online meetings will by then have been challenged in the courts. We therefore hope that we will have greater clarity about whether we can hold meetings in May and June safely online, but we need to prepare alternative arrangements just in case. That is all our amendment seeks to do, to support democracy and enable councillors to do their job.
A minute remaining.
We have no reason not to want meetings to happen. After all, we won the last election and we have the most councillors and the most speakers, and we win every vote. So it is never in our interest to delay or move meetings. We're committed to democracy, and that is why we are opposed to plans to end online meetings. I hope this amendment can be passed at tonight's meeting. And I hope that the remainder of this debate can adopt a moderate tone, partly in recognition of Her Majesty's loss, partly out of respect for the need to avoid partisan politics during the pre-election period, and partly out of understanding that we have always been committed to allow meetings to take place, ideally online, where it is safe for our colleagues and our staff. I move the amendment. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
The amendment seconder is Councillor Pritchard.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm mindful that we are in the pre-election period, and it is a tradition that I actually respect in this country, that we try and stay away from sort of political argy-bargy, but also that we're in a period of national mourning. I'm going to keep this quite short, and I just want to make 4 short points, really. The first, Madam Mayor, is that, unlike some, I'm confident that everyone in this virtual chamber shares a commitment to democracy and sees vital scrutiny as a vital part of that. I just don't believe otherwise. Second, I want to remind people that these scheduling issues, this crammed up month, are not a problem of this council's creation. Indeed, they're primarily a result of a number of factors. The first being the public health crisis. The second, a desire and obligation to obey the government's guidelines. The third, a clear desire to keep all councillors and officers as safe as possible during the public health crisis itself. But it's also true that they could have been averted, but not by us. They're here because of the bureaucratic intransigence and the lack of foresight in Westminster. And that's why councils up and down the country, regardless of what party is leading them, are still struggling to find a pragmatic and efficient way to deliver the number of meetings they need to before the 7th. My third and fourth point, Madam Mayor, look to the future. We can't let the efficiencies and accessibility gains that we've made over the past 15 months be discarded as we look how we operate in the future. For those with caring and parenting responsibilities, for those with access and accessibility issues, and for those of us with full-time jobs, our new remote meeting practices are more than a nice to have. Many of us, me included, view them as an essential step in improving representation and participation in all aspects of our democracy. I hope this is shared when I move on to my fifth point, which is that going forward, we're going to have to adjust the way that we work. Things have changed, they're not going back. We need more foresight that's been showed in Westminster, and regardless of the way that the judgment goes on the 21st, we're going to need to adopt working practices and show more flexibility and perhaps good faith than has been demonstrated this evening. Thank you for the opportunity to speak on this issue, Madam Mayor. I wholeheartedly support the amended motion as proposed by Councillor Allison.
Sorry, I'd unmuted it. I beg your pardon, I don't think you could hear me. We now move to the debate. The following have indicated they wish to speak. Councillor Holden.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I too was annoyed and frustrated by the cancellation of all the meetings in the corporate calendar, which didn't need to be. So like my colleagues, I signed the extraordinary meeting request to review this, and that is why we're here tonight. In particular, the cancellation of the scrutiny committee meetings. The scrutiny panels were told unilaterally that meetings will be cancelled upon agreement of the chair, the commission and officers. Upon gentle pushback from at least one committee chair, it turned out that the commission chair was content for each panel to decide, and as far as I noted, Councillor Southgate didn't make the unilateral decision to cancel the meetings. So this brings us to the point of finding out it wasn't officers or Councillor Southgate, but rather the Labour leadership. This is rather disappointing that they feel they can dismiss scrutiny committees out of hand when there was no need to do so. The work of scrutiny and whether or not panels meet should be the decision of the chair of the commission and the panel chairs themselves, not the Labour leadership. Of course, liaison with officers to appropriately modify agendas to remove, as Councillor Pritchard duly noted, political topics. We do know this was offered by the Sustainable Communities panel. We offered to remove several agenda items. Scrutiny committees do valuable work and often have recurring items that are looked at annually. So the cancellation of the meetings this time round, there would have been over 2 years since some of these items have been last looked at. Now, this, of course, is not right. Madam Mayor, I note the amendment accepts that the scrutiny panels can come back, which I welcome, and I look forward to hastily rearranging the Sustainable Communities meeting with Councillor Mundy. Thank you.
Councillor Barlow.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As we've already heard, there was no reason for tonight's meeting to happen because there was no reason for the administration to have cancelled meetings that were planned. There was no legal reason for them to do this, nor did they consult with the leaders of any of the other parties. I'm sure most of us would rather be somewhere else this evening, carrying out ward work, spending time with our families, or perhaps even supporting the pubs in our wards. But the reality is that even with the pubs open, this administration would struggle to organise anything in a brewery. In the honeymoon period of his leadership, Councillor Allison is already avoiding scrutiny and difficult questions, using every trick in the book to cancel meetings. As Councillor Williams has explained, the dates of our meetings and the elections were known well in advance. If meetings needed to be changed, this could have happened a long time ago. But the reality is that the administration simply saw an opportunity and they took it. I suspect that whatever he says, Councillor Allison does now regret his decision. The administration have tied themselves up in knots. First, they couldn't have any meetings. Then they could have extraordinary general meeting called by the Conservative group and the Liberal Democrats, but no other meetings. Now we see from the Labour amendment that we can have the scrutiny panel meetings, but not a full council. They're in a hole and they keep digging. Councillor Allison expressed regret that this meeting is taking place in a period of mourning. We agree, but the irony is, which I appreciate they couldn't have known, is that this meeting, if it wasn't for their decision, this meeting would not be happening at all. I would also point out that rightly, after a day of tributes yesterday, Parliament is now sitting again, as normal, as is appropriate in the circumstances, with the work of the government scrutinised and business continuing to be debated. We won't wholly resolve this issue tonight, but at least this debate makes clear to the majority party in Merton that the other councillors will not stand by and let them prevent us from doing the job we were elected to do. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Southgate.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd appreciate confirmation that I'm audible. Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to speak on the motion, the amendments. I'd like to speak principally from the perspective of scrutiny and to support the reinstatement of the meetings that would otherwise be lost because of PERDA. So for the record, I was consulted as chair of the commission on the cancellation of scrutiny meetings, or rather, put it more accurately, I was advised that meetings should be cancelled unless there were urgent items to be heard. Now, I have to admit the Constitution is not my bedside reading, since once I confirmed that task group meetings could go ahead and that also other chairs had been consulted, I accepted the advice. However, the cancellation of the April round of scrutiny meetings means the loss of agenda items we're unlikely to recover in the July round. Healthier communities due to hear from the South West London CCG. Children and young people were to examine reports on safeguarding children and school standards in Merton. And sustainable communities were going to be hearing from ID Verdi and examining parking charges, plus a charge. And the commission is to review the equality and community cohesion strategy. And these reports take on added significance if we think about how our more vulnerable communities will recover from the pandemic, both physically and mentally. And on top of that, bear in mind we lost, point Councillor Holden has just made, the same cycle of meetings a year ago. as the first lockdown was imposed. So that could mean 3 years passing before some of these annual reports are scrutinised if we don't reinstate them. I suspect many of our residents viewing this will be confused, perhaps, as to why the amendment proposes cancelling the full council meeting next week, and yet surely we're proposing to hold a meeting of the full council, are we not?
You have a minute remaining.
So leaving aside the annual council meeting, which we're bringing forward to ensure we elect the mayor and establish committees for the next civic year in a COVID compliant manner, there is an important distinction between the proposed extraordinary meeting to consider violence against women and girls and a full council meeting on the theme of community safety and cohesion. Now, taking place just 2 weeks before the GLA elections, I cannot see how the debate there would avoid topics such as policing numbers, measures to combat crime, these being put forward now by rival candidates for the mayoralty. Now, surely this is exactly the kind of politically charged situation which PERDA is designed to avoid, and it is for this reason the decision not to hold a full council meeting in the run-up to the GLA elections is the right decision. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Kohler.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would like to begin by conveying my group's sympathy to the Queen, her family and the country on the sad loss of Prince Philip. Councillor Allison, Councillor Pritchard, I don't know if you've checked the record, but I have, as far back as 2004. And the President is clear. This council has never previously cancelled meetings in the PERDA period prior to London Mayor and Assembly elections. The Constitution is largely the precedent, as Councillor Williams quoted it, that meetings can only be cancelled in exceptional circumstances at the request of committee chairs after consultation with, amongst others, leaders of other groups. So in addition to previous precedent, there are 3 legal reasons why the meeting should not have been cancelled. The albeit delayed London Assembly elections are not an exceptional circumstance. The committee chairs, at least Councillor Southgate, made no such request, and the leaders of other groups were not consulted, at least our leader was not. So how does a sensible opposition address such an obvious abuse of power? The Lib Dems took a pragmatic and constructive approach. Firstly, we exercised our constitutional right to call an extraordinary meeting on violence against women to replace the cancelled council meeting on safer communities, as that was the most important and pressing issue we were intending to raise in that meeting. And secondly, we asked the Chief Executive to review the decision in light of the clear words of the Constitution. Contrast that with our official opposition. After much sound and fury on social media, the Tories, of course, did nothing. Until, that is, they saw the Lib Dems call an EGM, at which point they scrambled around trying to show they were doing something, and hit upon the brilliant idea of calling a meeting to discuss a meeting. You could not make it up. The only effect of which was to stop the Chief Executive from reviewing a decision which, given the wording of the Constitution, would have given him no choice but to reverse by reinstating the meetings. The Tory motion, which we would of course have supported, has now naively given Labour the opportunity to amend it by offering a limited compromise, which, whilst better than nothing, is not good enough. Whilst we agree with Labour's criticisms of the Tory government for foolishly preventing virtual council meetings before we have even reached stage 3, let alone stage 4 in their roadmap for lifting lockdown, we completely disagree with the first paragraph of the amendment, which is an attack on democracy, our council constitution, and decades of precedent, simply because Councillor Allison ought to typically fear scrutiny, and much to my surprise, Councillor Pritchard supports him. My group will therefore abstain on both the amendment and the amended motion. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
There are no further speakers. Councillor McLean, do you wish to use your right of reply?
Yes, Madam Mayor. Firstly, given your opening remarks, I stayed away from mentioning His Royal Highness's passing, but I would like to take that opportunity now and obviously offer in our sincere group, the Conservative sincere condolence of Her Majesty the Queen, the Royal Family, at the sad passing of His Royal Highness, Prince Philip, the Duke of Edinburgh. Throughout his 99-year-long life, Prince Philip was associated with 990 new charities in one capacity or another, either as president, patron, or as an honorary member. His life was a life of service to Queen, country, and Commonwealth. If I may now move on, unfortunately, to Councillor Kohler. He was right. I was consulted and I objected. to the cancellation of the meetings. I was still in discussion as I opened up my opening remarks before the extraordinary meeting was called by the Liberal Democrats. I would also like to point out that that platform, of course, the only councillor that is actually standing in the GLA election is, of course, a Lib Dem councillor, probably worth.
You have a minute remaining.
But the fact of the matter is that these meetings should not have been called off. And I think that Councillor Williams, Councillor Holden, Councillor Barlow, some points from Councillor Kohler, indeed do state quite clearly that this decision simply should not have been taken. It is not right that council meetings are cancelled by an administration. It's just not right. And I think we have an opportunity now, especially I speak to all opposition councillors, all backbench councillors, for us to stand up against an overmighty administration. Let's do the right thing and let's stand up for our residents and make sure that this does not happen again, that an administration cannot walk over opposition and backbench MPs. Thank you.
I now call for a vote on the amendment. Members, please select on your screens either for, against, or not voting. And press submit. Councillor Stamford, could you please send your vote? Councillor Stanford, can you hear me? We need your vote, please.
Yeah, I've just unmuted myself. This is for the amendment, yes?
Yes.
Yes. For the amendment.
Thank you. The Labour amendment 434, against 17, not voting 7. The motion, the amendment is carried. I now call for a vote on the substantive motion as amended. Members, please select on your screen either for, against, or not voting, then press submit. Councillor Stanford, please can we have your vote?
For.
Councillor Stanford, now you've voted, could you please turn your phone off to prevent the echo? Thank you. The substantive motion as amended, votes for 33, against 17, not voting 7. Therefore, the substantive motion as amended is carried. With no further business, I declare this extraordinary meeting of the council closed. Thank you for coming and good night to everyone.
Good night, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Night.